Okay, so today, which ignore this, and depending on if you have me on Thursday or Friday, this was 8, 5, and 8, 6 notes. Both parts, not part one. So we did absolute value today. So the absolute value of a number is the distance from 0 on a number line, okay? So it is represented by these two long straight up and down bars, and our absolute value, say we had a number line, here is 0, here is 6, and here is -6. Both of these are 6 units away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units away from 0. It doesn't look like it. I drew that really bad. But they're the same distance from 0. Okay? And that's really all we care about. It is always going to be positive. This is why I write in pencil. Positive. Okay, so an absolute value is always going to give you a positive number. So looking at these right here, looking at number 1, if the absolute value of x is equal to 10, then that means that x can either be 10, of course, or x can be -10. Because if we draw our number line, we draw 0, we have 10, and we have -10. They're in different directions, but there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 units away, both of them. Okay, so inside of our little bracket can be a negative number, but our solution is always going to be positive. So, same thing here. If the absolute value of z is 2/3, then z can either be 2/3 or z can be -2/3. Absolute value of a negative gives us the same number but positive. Okay, how about this one? Like I just said, if we have the absolute value of something, it cannot be negative. Our absolute value is always going to be positive. Okay, so this is not true. Therefore, no solution. If you have an absolute value with nothing else around it and it's equal to a negative number, that is not true. So let's go ahead and look at number 4 and solve these. There's a little bit more inside of this absolute value bars than before, but it's the same deal. Okay, so the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is all inside of the absolute values. So this whole equation right here equaling 5 is the same thing as up here. So we can have two cases. We can have 2x minus 1 equaling 5, right? Or we can have 2x minus 1 equaling -5. They're the same distance from 0. The absolute value can equal a negative or a positive number. It just has to yield a positive in the end. So, looking at number 1, we want to solve for x, so we're going to go ahead and add 1 to both sides. We get 2x equals 6, divide by 2 to get x by itself, and we get x equals 3. And for this one, adding 1 to both sides, we get 2x equals -4. Divide by 2, and we get x equals -2. So x can either be 3 or -2. Let's try it. So let's plug 3 in for x. So if we get the absolute value of 2 times 3 minus 1, that's the absolute value of 6 minus 1, which is the absolute value of 5, which is 5, right? Now let's try to plug in negative 2. So this was example 1. Now for example 2. We have the absolute value of 2 times negative 2 minus 1 equaling 5. That's going to be the absolute value of negative 4 minus 1 equaling 5. Absolute value of negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5 equaling 5. And the absolute value of a negative number is always going to be positive. Therefore, this also works. Okay, for this example, we want to get the absolute value by itself. So we're going to move 5 over to the other side. We're going to have absolute value of a minus 4 equaling 5. And then we repeat this process. So the absolute value of a minus 4 can either equal 5, or the absolute value of a minus 4 can equal negative 5. I guess we didn't really need these. Okay, so we want to get rid of that 4, getting a by itself, so we add 4 to both sides, and in this case we get a equals 9, and we do the same thing with this one, and in this case we get a equals negative 1. So once again, if we plugged either of these in for a in this equation, it's going to give us 0. They both work. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at number 6. Once again, what we want to do is get the absolute value alone, so that we can solve for what's inside. So my first step would be to add 1 to both sides. Everything else stays the same. 8 plus 1 is 9. Okay, and then what we can do from there, this 3 is being multiplied into this whole absolute value. Think of this as one term. 3 times something. In order to get rid of this here, we're going to do the opposite. So let's divide both sides by 3. That'll go away. We have the absolute value of x plus 2 equals 9 divided by 3 is 3. So then we have either x plus 2 equals 3 or x plus 2 equals negative 3. And once we go ahead and get x by itself and solve for those, in this case x equals 1, and in this case x equals negative 5. Alright, let's go ahead and look at number 8 real quick before we look at 7. Is there anything attached to this absolute value? No, there's nothing attached to this absolute value, which means that we have an absolute value of something equaling a negative number. Can that happen? No. Okay, an absolute value cannot be equal to a negative. So this is no solution. Ask yourself that before you try to do a bunch of work and get confused. This can't be true. Now, for example 7 here, I don't know why I just picked up a pen. Definitely don't want to use pen. There is another x on this right-hand side here, right? Which looks a little bit different than our other problems. But we're going to take the same steps, okay? So this absolute value is by itself. It can either equal this, or it can equal negative 4x plus 5. Okay? Just like here, when this got down here and equaled 3, positive 3 or negative 3, this whole absolute value can either equal this positive or it negative, okay? So let's stick with the positive version first. So we have 3x plus 2 equaling 4x plus 5. We want to, I always keep my x positive, so I'm going to subtract 3x over, combine our like terms, so we get 2 equaling x plus 5, subtract 5 over to get negative 3 equaling x. Okay, this was 1. Or we can have this equaling that, the negative version. So we have 3x plus 2 equaling, make sure we FOIL this negative through our parentheses, so we'll have negative 4x minus 5. And then we go ahead and take the same steps to solve for x. I'm going to add 4x over, we get 7x. I'm going to subtract 2 over, and we get negative 7. Dividing by 7, we get x equals negative 1.